Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this music coming out of a man's sweater, you know it's the bathtub special Christmas edition episode that's being filmed after Christmas because I forgot to do it before Christmas. And here's Lucky the Wonder Dog with a new present. You want to come show everybody? Come on, come here, come on. This is Lucky's present. She's all excited about it. She's been playing with it all day, and we're not playing tug of war, Lucky. You have to take that with you. And I can't use the normal theme song. I used to use the Ronettes from the Phil Spector Christmas album. Oh, Lucky, come here! I gotta catch you. Oh, booger. This is a booger dog. If I used to do the Ronettes all the time, but they keep putting copyright claims against these stupid videos, and I decided just to play the sweater. So from now on, I'm not playing any music unless it comes out of my sweater. Okay? Happy Christmas. It's post-Christmas edition. I'm going to make Lucky leave. Come on. Because she's already going so crazy from this. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on, Lucky. Come. Come on. Honey, would you call her? Come on. You need to take her. Okay. So, as you can see, this is as well choreographed as always. Here's my new Ugg slippers. Cool. My new Ugg slippers. I got lots of good Christmas presents this year too. And I take off because it's 2 days after Christmas. This is actually the 27th. I had planned to do 2 or 3 Christmas cracker editions before Christmas, and like I said, I got to get around to it. And also, so I'm taking this off because it's hot. So this is actually the symbolic end of Christmas show. We're gonna take off the Christmas sweater and put that away for next year because that's the sound effects. Next year, that's my musical accompaniment, that sweater. And I'm not going to erase this. One of the reasons people often ask me why I do so many damn Christmas shows. And the reason is because when the prop department comes up with something like this incredible mural. You know, you got the dragon, you got the menorah, you got the Christmas tree, you get all. I mean, that's just amazing. It makes a piece of artwork. And these people they come up all the way from Pismo Beach to bring this every year. I just can't do one episode. So I was going to do a third. This is my second Christmas cracker edition. I'm going to do it fairly quickly. It's going to be even more chaotic than usual, if you probably haven't noticed already, because the premise of the Christmas cracker edition is to get all the books off my side table. So it's all these stacks of books, the Jenga thing of towering books. And these are all books that I've either been reading recently, or I've been intending to talk about, or I've finally found ways of talking about, and I'm going to go through them quickly. These are like great books, so don't think that because we're doing so many at once, they're not important. I think they're all really cool books. I got a big pimple on my nose. This is a really good episode. It's a Christmas pimple, I think. Now, what have I got? I'm just go through the stacks. I got tons of books on stacks here. We get rid of them all. One of them is We All Love MAIGRET here at the bathtub. This is called MAIGRET Enjoys Himself. I read this over Christmas. We talked in the past, sometimes you want a big project at Christmas, but this Christmas I thought the whole year was a bit of a project. So I just read lots of different things. And and that's kind of more fun too, just to do a little bit here and there. So I just read one MAIGRET, always makes me happy at any holiday. And MAIGRET Enjoys Himself is a particularly good one. It's where MAIGRET's on holiday. They have a staycation. It's a staycation MAIGRET, so it's perfect for our holiday. And he stays him and his wife are supposed to go somewhere, and they don't. I don't remember why. And he stays in Paris, and him and his wife just go out to eat every night and go to movies. And then there's a murder in town, and MAIGRET just kind of follows the murder in the newspapers. And he kind of, tries to figure it out himself. And he sends in tips to his buddies at the prefecture. And it's a terrific one. This whole period, the whole middle period of MAIGRET is like my favorite. Another one, I read Murder Mysteries. Everyone loves to see people get killed at Christmas. I mean, I don't know why that is, but murder at Christmas. So Rex Stout is always on my Christmas list. I read the latest. I've been trying to read these sequentially, just like the MAIGRETs, because I forget which ones I've read, and then usually I've read them before. Sometimes I haven't. Anyway, Before Midnight. This is a really good mid-period Rex Stout, and it has to do with some sort of a advertising executive gets killed and something like that, and it's just fun. It's basically for the banter between. I never care who actually killed Roger Ackroyd. I'm really more interested in Archie Goodwin and Nero Wolfe are always giving each other trouble. The other thing I wanted to do, so there's a lot of these kind of half-assed ideas I've been wanting to do, and I'm still going to do them, but I'm not going to do them immediately, so I'm just getting them off the shelves. One of the things I'm going to do in the new year, I think, is do a, if you like Stanislaw Lem, Memoirs of a Space Traveler, we talked about, this is a really good one. You should like Robert Sheckley. If you do not know Robert Sheckley and you like to laugh, you really need to read Robert Sheckley. His most famous book was The Seventh Victim, or I think it was called The 10th Victim, and then there was an Italian movie with Marcello Mastroianni, and I think Ursula Andress, which I saw as a kid before I think I'd read Robert Sheckley, and it was kind of, it's a game show, a TV game show where people murder each other, and he did a lot of takeoffs on game shows and reality TV long before reality TV was ever existed. And he basically he wrote about the Trump administration 50 years ago. He was very funny. This is a very late collection of his called The Robot Who Looked Like Me. It's a perfect Robert Sheckley story. It's about a guy who lives in a slightly near future, who's working so hard, has so many jobs to pay the bills that he doesn't have time to date women. So he hires he buys a robot that looks like him to take the girl out. A perfect Robert Sheckley story. Every story in this is just smart, sharp, funny, moves really quickly. He is one of the great American short story writers. I think, there's a little more weight sometimes to Lem, but at the same time, the humor and the sense of humor and the extrapolation of our ridiculous human lives is great. And I've read Sheckley since I was about 13 or 14. He's never disappointed me once. Here's a few other weird books I have here. One is every Christmas I mean to finish reading this John Ford biography by Joseph McBride. Because one of the things I like to do at Christmas is watch like old movies, and I keep meaning to watch through the sequence of John Ford. He made so many great movies. This is a terrific biography, which I started in London about 6 years ago. And I've got all the John Ford movies, and I didn't even get a chance to watch one of them this Christmas because I've been watching a lot of other weird stuff. But this is a really good biography. I loved this biography, and I'm going to finish reading it some Christmas in the future. This is not a very Christmassy book. This is Let History Judge. It's on my side of my table there. I just want to mention it to you so I can get it. I can finish it and not talk about it anymore. It's called Let History Judge, and it's one of the first kind of Russian books in Russian that told what happened during Stalinism, when Stalin was basically just killing everybody and manipulating everybody, and it reveals, it basically goes in and keeps track of all the lies and misinformation that came out. This guy should be around for the next few years. We need him in Washington. Another book that I really like, I've been reading over Christmas, and I kind of come and go to it. I'm a big fan of Andrew Sarris. It's almost, I don't know, a lot of people find him annoying. He writes very, very dense little articles and essays about film, and I really like his ideas about movie directors. And this is a book I've had on my shelf all my life, pretty much since I went to college. My college teacher gave it to me and told me to assign it for a class. And I at first I just made fun of it for years and said, this guy's such a pretentious dick. And I just grew on me. I love this book. So I mean, maybe I become a pretentious dick. But he also wrote, and I've had this on my shelf for years. I finally started reading it over the holidays. You Ain't Heard Nothing Yet, which is Andrew Sarris spent most of his life writing this history of early American sound films. And he just has this great eye for directors and things that interest directors. And there's long essays on John Ford and Preston Sturges and Charles Chaplin and even the Marx Brothers. He writes really well about everybody. He's not a kind of a pleasurable read like many people love Pauline Kael, who I've never been wild about. But he's a much denser writer, but he really has a lot to say about the movies that he loves. Finally, did I mention? Yeah, I've got that. So I've got all these different plans for the future. One of the things I wanted to do this past month or 2 months, I never got to it, is start a new theme show on the bathtub. Because we haven't have enough theme shows. So I'm sorry this all has to go because Christmas is over. We're taking off all the Christmas lights, and I've got a new one here. It's a new theme show. It's going to be called Nicely Nepotistic. And there's a little story behind it, nice and nepotistic, which is that as a writer and sometimes reviewer and just general bullshitter about books, I spent most of my life not reviewing books by friends. I never reviewed a book. The only time I ever said no to reviews was when someone said, well, could you review so-and-so? And I knew that person, it was a friend of mine, say, particularly in London, cheers to Christmas, that's our martini in the floral pattern martini glass, just like Philip Marlowe drinks out of. I never would do a book by somebody I knew. Now, there was 2 or 3 reasons for that. One is I would be very hard to review, and talking about books by friends is really impossible. Saying things fair about them and telling people about those books, it's always, the literary world is filled with people reviewing each other's books. If you read the New York Review of Books, we used to call it the New York Review of reviewing books by people we know. But they never tell you that they're all friends. When Martin Amis reviews Ian McEwan, or Ian McEwan reviews Martin Amis. I just hate that crap. Having said all that, I do sometimes review. I often, over my life, if I had this kind of weird logic in my head, which is I loved a writer before I met them, I would review their book. So, for example, Brian Moore, I loved Brian Moore's books, and even after I got to know him, if I could review him, I would. Tom Dish, I had been loving Tom Dish's books since I could remember. I eventually met Tom, and I never felt bad about reviewing his work. However, if I know somebody and then I read their book because I know them, I feel that's nepotism. But I figure this is my own show, so I can do what the fuck I want to do. So I can, excuse me, I have to tick off that box that I said F-U-C-K, but on the YouTube thing. But I can actually mention books just by people who I liked. So I'm going to start doing this occasionally. I'm going to do a nicely nepotistic episode, which is just, these are people I know and I like them, and then I like their books, or I haven't read their books. 2 ones really quickly, but I really enjoyed both of them. One is we've talked about our friend John Andrew Fredrick, The King of Good Intentions. These are not beautiful covers. It's published by somebody, I don't know who the hell it is, Verse Chorus Press or something. These are really good. What's interesting about these books is they're really, really well-written, excellent, entertaining books that have been published by really terrible publishers. The publishers seem to have no idea what they're doing. And yet the books are great. And they're totally disappeared. You have to order these somewhere. But John Andrew Fredrick, I got to know online. I met him once briefly. He sent me this book, and usually when people send me books, I always avoid reading them. But I started this, and I loved it. It's about the kind of indie band scene, indie rock scene in Los Angeles, mainly Southern California, and about this guy whose name is actually John, who's clearly based on John Andrew Fredrick, who's a kind of a man of all seasons in rock and roll and indie pop, and writes beautiful, very funny lyrics. And he works in a university by the day to pay his bills. And it's a very funny book about the club scene, the people are around, and the dialogue just snaps. In almost every sentence, there's a lot of energy in it. And so if that's it's set in the 90s, early 2000s. I had read this years ago, and as soon as I read it, I had John come to my class, my online class, because it was such a good book. And he's also the brains and the genes behind the Black Watch, who I've become to love. The other book I met Bruce through John, so this is totally nepotism. But I met Bruce, and through John, I've only talked to Bruce online. We talked a few times. I love him. He's a great guy, really funny. He did a lot of stuff in television. He's probably the only person I've ever met, possibly besides John, who probably did the worst with a good career of anybody besides me. No one could do worse with a good career than I have. I always made the worst career decisions. Bruce probably did. He was a big, successful, I'm sure, big money-making TV writer who decided to write novels. If you go from writing really successful television and your choice is to write literary novels, anybody with a brain would not choose go to write literary novels. Bruce did. When he first told me about this book, it's got a weird title, Elevating Overman. This cover's terrible. It looks like a college textbook about, I don't know, design technology or something. It just has a terrible cover. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's I hope Bruce didn't do this cover, but it's not a very good cover. And it doesn't look at all like the book it is. If you like, I can't, it's hard to compare this book to anybody, but it does remind me a little bit of Philip Roth because he's got these long narrative paragraphs. Almost, I would say every paragraph is a funny story. And he does these the sort of writing I've always really liked, which is each paragraph tells you a different story about this character. It's a slightly fantastic premise. It's sort of a jokey premise about superheroes. You can't even tell from the cover. But the joke is this guy, he's kind of an old middle-aged guy. I think he's divorced. And he goes to get LASIK eye surgery because he's always had to wear glasses. And that's the very first 10 pages. Bruce does something in this that I really love in most good books, which is he starts off with a really weird idea, which he goes to get LASIK surgery, and he just feels really confident. And suddenly everything goes well for this guy. It's a very positive book. I read this at some of the darkest days of the pandemic and the Trump administration. And it basically, things go really well for Overman for long periods of time. And he's got this weird friend named Rosenbaum who thinks he's a superhero and all sorts of stuff. And I don't want to tell any more, but I really was charmed and really enjoyed this book. It's just a shame that books like this aren't being published better. And I would say the same with John's book. But then I'd say the same in my book, so what the hell can I say? Really good books, 2 good books by people who I only read them because I like them personally, and I like their books just as much as I like them. Finally, I figure if I'm doing nepotism, this is a guy I hardly know at all. I'm going to do this every once in a while. Just people I know, I've got their books. I haven't even read this book. It's called Haunted Girlfriend. It's published by a very small publisher called Expat Press. And James sent me this book. James has been kind of in my kind of, what do you call it? Vonnegut calls your karass, is kind of out there in the world. And every 5 years I hear from James about something. I think 30 years ago he published a story of mine in a little magazine. And every once in a while I hear from him. He wrote some nice things about one of my books in an online source somewhere. And anyway, I heard from James. Actually, I sold him. He bought a book for me on eBay. It's just like you keep running. When you love books, you keep running into the same people who love books. Anyway, he sent me this book. I haven't even read it. It's called Haunted Girlfriend. Has a cool title. And I always open the book. See, look, I'm only mentioning this because I know this guy. That's the only reason I mention it. But it looks interesting. It says, for Scott Bradfield, and I say it's signed by him here. And I always open to the first sentence. And the first sentence was, I visited Luke Magnotta in prison. Great opening sentence. So as far as I'm concerned, you hear a good opening sentence. It's worth checking it out. Don't read book reviews. Don't read books just because your friends did it or you know somebody whose friends wrote the book. Open it up. Read a few sentences. Any one of these books we talked about today, and you'll probably have a good time. And if you don't have a good time after the first paragraph or two, you don't have to read them. Go read something else. Anyway, my purple shirt is back. The Christmas sweater's gone. We'll probably do a couple more episodes of Nicely Nepotistic in the future as because we don't have enough theme shows here. Lots of books these are all books I really enjoyed at different times, and we'll be talking about all these wonderful writers. I had one more book I was going to do. One more book I wanted to clear off the table, and I forget where I put it now. It was Jack Williamson. Anyway, I'll have to do the Jack Williamson in the future. Take care. Happy Christmas. Stay safe. I don't have my sweater, so I can't play you any music.